Hello everyone, Mariko, residential realtor with the Bridgewell Real Estate Group, and welcome back to the Bridgewell Group YouTube channel where I talk about all things real estate. And in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down different home pricing strategies for sellers. And so this is going to be a video that definitely tailors to sellers, but it will also be relevant to buyers because I am going to be going through a variety of things such as market value versus listing price. I'm going to be going through how you can price your home in 3 different strategies. I'll be going through pros and cons of each strategy, whether you're in a hotter market, a cooler market, a neutral market, and just all of the factors that we think of as realtors when it comes to recommending a listing price for your particular home. So let's just get into it. So starting off with listing price versus market value and the definitions of these two things. So when I'm talking about listing price, I'm talking about the price that the home is listed for on the MLS, for example. It is the price that the seller and the seller's realtor sit down and decide together based on their goals and their strategy to come up with a number that is going to be offered to the rest of the public, essentially. That listing price is not necessarily like a hard, firm price. When you're a buyer, you can go in and you can offer less, you can offer at, and that is a part of that buyer strategy as well. Now, when we're thinking about the overall strategy, we really need to factor in something called market value. And this is relevant to both buyers and sellers. And when I'm talking about market value, I'm talking about the actual value range of that property. And so the reason why I say range is because there's also something that we can call subjective value, right? So a view, for example, a view might be worth $100,000 to you, but it could be worth nothing to me. An EV car charger is a perfect example. If I don't have an EV car, I probably don't really care. But if you have an EV car, that could definitely be worth $10,000 to $20,000 for you. So in real estate, market value, it's impossible to pinpoint it exactly what it is and what you should offer, but it is a range of acceptable numbers for where you can kind of expect to fall within, whether that be on the buyer or the seller side. So how do we determine market value? It's going to be a lot more heavily weighted to recent comparable sold properties that are similar, again, to the subject property that you are either pricing as a home seller or considering as a home buyer. So when we're dealing with market value, the reason why we want to put more weight on those solds is because you can essentially see those as the success stories where the buyer and seller have come together and accepted a market value for that property versus active properties. Active properties aren't necessarily reflective of actual market value because a seller can list high, they can list low, they can list at market value, but all of these are different strategies, which I will get into later. So that market value range, again, when we are looking at estimating market value for you as a realtor, we really are putting the bulk of the weight on the recent sales, ideally in your area. For example, if you're in a condo, in your condo buildings, what's representative of your same strata. We might not always have exact comparables with regards to your same sub area. So maybe it's like in your city, like a same structure of home, a style of home, 2-story with a basement, maybe shouldn't be compared to a rancher, right? So there's a lot of different factors that come into considering market value and helping you to determine what the best listing strategy is, but also what the best price to offer is if you're on the buy side. So how do you determine what listing strategy is right for you and your home? There's a couple things that you need to consider before we can even talk about the strategy itself, okay? So first of all, you're going to want to have a realtor come through and do a market evaluation for you, whether that be 1 realtor, whether that be 3 realtors, whoever you decide to kind of interview, you want to make sure that they're coming to view your home and that they're taking the considerations like location, size, age, condition, all of these things relative to recent comparable sales. Also factoring in market conditions. So when I'm talking about market conditions, I'm talking about how hot or cool or neutral the market is. Is there a really low amount of inventory and a really high amount of demand? well, that should be a part of their listing strategy as well in terms of what they recommend. Versus, are we in a downwards trending market? Do you want to be ahead of that curve? Is every sale that's happening bringing the price down? These are considerations that you also have to have as a seller to determine how you want to price your home. So definitely make sure that you are factoring in market conditions in addition to the actual recent sales, because that sale from 30 days ago could be very different from your sale today. So let's take a situation where you've already had your realtor through and they say that market value is in the range of about $1 million, okay? So this is roughly market value, right? Give or take, whatever, 10, 20 grand. So you have 3 different strategies that you can explore. You can explore listing above market value. Let's call this 1.1 million, right? Or you can explore listing below market value. Let's call this 900K. So starting off with the listing strategy of listing below market value. So what are the pros and what are the cons? When we're talking about the pros, you are generally going to sell really quickly and you're probably going to have a large quantity of people through your home because you are essentially discounting that listing price relative to what actual market value is. So it's similar to going shopping. It's like if you see something that's usually $5 and now it's advertised for $3, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to get that. I have to go in, right? But when you go in for $3, you're probably not expecting to pay $5. So this is really the con of this strategy, is that the people coming through, the bulk of that quantity is probably going to be low quality if you are expecting a higher price. So let's take an example where you have multiple offers, right? It's like even if you have 1, 2, or 3 offers, maybe offer 1, they can only afford 900K because that's what you were asking and they don't understand the difference between listing price and market value. Maybe number 2, they're like, oh, okay, like I can see that this is low price and even if I pay 950, I'm still getting less than what the actual market value is. So I'm still getting a deal. They understand that concept, right? And then maybe number 3, let's say they're like, oh no, like I can see the neighbor just sold for $1 million and I'm in a multiple offer scenario. I absolutely love this property. I really, really, really want it. And they go for $1 million, right? This is definitely something that can happen, particularly when you're in a hotter market where there's low inventory and high demand. In those hotter markets as well, a lot of the times people already have the expectation that things will sell over the listing price, right? So if that's already the psychology of the buyer, then maybe this is a strategy that you want to explore because it means you can sell fast because you've listed lower. And in a hot market, you have a higher likelihood of multiple offers. And assuming that they have an expectation to pay more than the listing price, you might actually achieve that market value goal, right? Now, going back to the con of this exact same situation, right? Let's say, for example, all of these offers fall short, right? Maybe this one comes in at 950, this one's at 900. I've even had it before where this person comes in lower at 875, right? People do not always understand the difference between listing price and market value. So you really have to be prepared for this risk of listing low, that it might fall short of what actual market value is. But again, you will probably sell quickly and you'll probably get offers quickly, depending again on what kind of market you're in. But there's always that pro and con, particularly to this below market value strategy. So let's go into scenario 2 where you are listing right around market value, right? So let's say again, your neighbor just sold for $1 million and it's pretty much the exact same as yours and you decide to list at 999,900, okay? So in this situation, again, we have to consider what kind of market we're in. Are we in a cooler market? Are we in a hotter market? What's that situation, right? If we are in a hotter market, this could actually be a really good strategy for you because if there's low inventory and there's a high amount of demand, even though you list right at market value, you could still have a very high likelihood of getting multiple offers. We've had this happen again and again and again on our team before, where we end up getting, say, 1 offer, 2 offers, and just because we listed at market value and people's expectation is that, oh, the price is probably going to be higher than the listing price because that's the way that the market is right now, we might actually be able to get higher, right? Let's say that we get one at $1 million. Okay, well, that's already what we were expecting. That's already market value. Phenomenal. If we get lucky enough to get a multiple offer scenario, maybe we're at $1,025,000, right? Whatever that number is. So again, it's not really guaranteed that you're going to get multiple offers, but this is definitely a safer method in terms of meeting actual market value, because even if you only get one offer, you're still within that acceptable range, regardless if there is a little bit of negotiation or not, right? So this is really a very safe method. Now, if you are in a cooler market, then we're probably not expecting a multiple offer scenario, right? We're probably expecting some negotiation. So in a cooler market, you're still within a fairly acceptable range, right? But you have to think that every sale that's happening, this is today, this is tomorrow, this is the next day, that downward trending market means you might want to be ahead of the market, right? So in that situation, to be ahead of the market, if you have a high amount of inventory and a low amount of demand, you might have to be slightly below. And that could be the better strategy, right? But it's a matter of how much below you want to be. But regardless of whether you're within a close and reasonable range to market value, but slightly below, or you're at market value, again, you're kind of safeguarding yourself to see how the market responds and just waiting for that offer to come around, put very simply. When you're pricing at market value, you're also meeting the market's expectations to some extent. And so you still have a relatively good chance of selling within the average days on market for those market conditions at the time. So the pro to this strategy is that it is lower risk overall. You are essentially going to be in an acceptable range for the bulk of the market. So you're probably going to have a very average days on market, which could be very quick in a hot market, or again, could be average and a little bit more of like a neutral or a slower market. And you're probably going to protect the amount of money that you have, in the sense that you're not really leaving money on the table like you could be in this strategy, or wasting time where you maybe just change your strategy and have to increase the listing price anyways. So overall, I would say this is the most neutral and safest. In terms of a con, again, if you're in that downward trending market, or if you have a lot of inventory that's competing on the market, you could certainly be overlooked, because market value for when you list it might not be progressive enough for when that actual offer comes, if average days on market is, say, 30 days away from now. So it might be more beneficial for you to price ahead of the market if the market is cold. So last but not least, we're going to go through a strategy of listing above market value. And so let's say that your realtor comes through and says, hey, the property is worth about $1 million. Here's the reason why. You know, there's all these solds that are very similar to your home that are around $1 million. I think this is what it's worth. And you say, you know what, I totally get that, and I want to try 1.1 million, just let me try. This happens quite often. So let's say that we're at that $1.1 million mark. What are the pros and what are the cons? So the pro is that you get to try, and you get to feel like you tried. Some people just need to try, and then they will adjust later once they've tried. So if you just need to do that for personal reasons, that could be a pro to this. Another pro to this is that you could actually have somebody that comes and falls in love with your home and is willing to overpay for a property. I won't say it happens often, but I will not lie to you, it has happened before. And so again, if you're going back to that, like, oh, people don't always understand the difference between listing price and market value, let's take a situation where you're listed at 1.1, right? And somebody's just like, oh, I just want to buy something for under, listing price. And that's my version of a deal, right? Not exactly logic, but let's just say, right? And they get it for $1,050,000. They get it for 50 grand under. Even though that is 50 grand under the listing price, it's still $50,000 higher than what market value could be, right? So there are situations where you could actually come out better by listing higher if you have somebody that doesn't really understand the difference between listing price and market value, or has a very subjective leaning value to your property. So in the beginning, I had talked about how a view, right? You're like, my view is worth $1 million, right? and it could actually be worth $1 million to someone, but it's not worth $1 million to another person, right? So if you're waiting for that person to come around that really appreciates this thing that has a very subjective value, this could definitely be a pro or a reasoning for you to price in this way. So what is the con to this strategy? A con is definitely that you are not meeting the market's expectation in terms of where they think pricing should be, or the overall market probably thinks pricing should be based on those recent comparable sales, right? So what often happens is that when you are priced above market value, you often see a higher days on market. So it's going to take you longer to sell. In a downwards trending market, it can also be really risky, because if your home was worth $1 million today when I did that market evaluation, but you chose to list at 1.1, in a month from now, that could be worth $900K. And the further you wait, or the longer that you hold on to this hypothetical pipe dream of 1.1, the more money you could actually be losing if the market is going down, right? If the market is going up, well, again, you have that higher average days on market, but maybe you can just wait for the market to end up meeting your pricing expectations. So again, you have to consider, where is the market going? Is it downwards trending or is it upwards trending? Another thing that we often see with homes that are priced high, specifically in more of those neutral, cooler markets, you see constant price adjustments. Price adjustment, price adjustment, price adjustment over a period of time. Again, you're chasing that market downwards, and you could end up just getting further and further away from where actual market value is. But aside from that, even if you assume that market value stays the same, that lowering of the price sometimes can stigmatize your home, because people maybe think there's something wrong with it because it's been on the market for so long, because they keep trying to lower the price. What's wrong with that home? Why isn't it selling? Most of the time it's price, and a good realtor will probably tell you that, but you have to understand that your pricing strategy and lowering the price over time could certainly impact buyer psychology when they do eventually come to write an offer on your property. So these are essentially the 3 different pricing strategies that you need to consider. And as I've mentioned already, there's a lot of different pros and cons to the 3 different strategies. And as I also mentioned before, you really have to consider the market conditions and where the market is going, in addition to personal factors like, you know, how much money you've put into the home. Are you losing money on the home? Are you making money on the home? Why are you moving? Do you have to leave, like for a job relocation? Do you have time to wait? All of these different things are factors that you should be discussing with your realtor when they come to do the market evaluation, and really collaborate with them to determine what the best listing price is. Because again, the difference between listing price and market value is the market value is based on those solds, right? But the listing price is really a strategy. And so you want to think about all of these things together to come up with the best strategy for you and your home to make sure that you achieve your goals, whether that be the highest price, whether that be a quick sale because you just need to move. Everybody has different goals, and so the listing price should really be tailored to you and your goals. That's all for today, and I hope that this video was helpful in getting you to better understand the different home pricing strategies available to you so that you can make an educated decision on what's best for yourself and your home. Again, my name is Mariko and I am a residential realtor with my team, the Bridgewell Real Estate Group, and we are located in the Greater Vancouver area and also service the Fraser Valley. So if you are looking for a realtor to help you list your home and are wanting a market evaluation tailored to you, definitely feel free to reach out to myself and my team today, and we'd be more than happy to help. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.